See, I've only taken, Elizabeth, you're waiting. Look at that. I've only taken courses on Zoom because the administration made me. So I'm not used to actually running it right now because I don't like that. It's like, look at me, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But it's going to take me a couple of days to get back into the rhythm of things. But I'm much better live than on TV. So everybody in here should be taking this class either as a major requirement or you're a glutton for punishment. Rachel, where are you at? Rachel's a glutton for punishment. She's a senior, she's a cabinet, yeah. But you're going on to great things. So you have, see, this is her last semester here. And she's just, yeah, well, you've heard so many horrible things. You might as well see if they're true. Don't believe what you hear, good or bad. Form your own opinions, collect your own data. So the way this course tends to go, it's hard and fast. It's a majors level zoology and botany and basic ecology course. It's a little heavy on the zoology because I am a zoologist. No, it's gonna be one of those. Just gonna mute the screen for now. That's the fancy mute. Slide the cover over the lens. And we meet Tuesday, Thursday, 8 to 9:20, and lab on Tuesday, tentatively right now from 1:50 to 4:50. I have allergies, not COVID. So, because I never get sick, I never cancel class, I never miss class. In 26 years, I think I have been sick 3 times, and I only missed class for one of them because I had a double lung pneumonia and I was spewing up blood. So, generally speaking, I will always be here. So that's one thing that you can take to the bank. Hopefully you've looked at the syllabus, which has changed. The only thing that changed was the time for the lab on the syllabus because they changed the time on the lab sometime over the weekend. And I think I put the syllabus up and sent it to you guys back mid-December. If you've checked out, I'll try the share screen thing now so everybody can see stuff. All right. Come on, Zoom. I'm not selecting there. All right. Like mini me here. Okay. So somebody in class, either Elizabeth, but I don't know if Elizabeth will be here on Tuesdays. And I'll let Elizabeth introduce herself in a minute. Remind me to record because I record every class session and every lab intro. So you have it that you can kind of go back and like double check your notes, or if you are sick or if something's wrong and you can't be here face to face, you can either be here by Zoom or you can look at the recording later. Problem is, you're not going to look at the recording later. You won't. So here's the syllabus. Can Jalen, can you guys see this?
Yeah, we can see it.
Are you getting nauseous, Madison?
No.
I'll make you sick, guaranteed. Okay, so this is like one of the longest syllabi that I've ever produced. They used to be 1 page long, and then they get longer and longer and longer with all the nonsense. Here's all the contact information for me, for Elizabeth. I think somewhere, probably on the Moodle site, my cell phone number is on there. It is okay to text me. It is okay to call me. Preferably not after 11 o'clock at night or like before 6 o'clock in the morning. I do stay up late, but generally speaking, it can probably wait that 6 hours unless it's like something really horrific. Then you can always just, email me, text me, whatever the case is. Because the exams, quizzes, all that stuff you guys are going to take are going to be online. They're going to be through Moodle, not through the Respondus software because we had so many problems with that a couple of semesters ago that I kind of came up with some own modifications to the Moodle testing system to detect online cheating and stuff like that. I don't take over your camera so I can watch you, but you know, cameras are on, so I can technically see like what you're doing on the exam. So we'll talk about exams, quizzes, and all that stuff later. But when you run into problems, if there's something wrong during a quiz, oh, it's frozen, then you just text me and be like, because I'll be like waiting for a problem most of the time for the testing quizzes, because there's always at least one. Office hours. I have a lot of them. Make an appointment. Even though they're open office hours, if you have limited time, make an appointment. So if you only have that like 20 minutes of time, even if somebody else just kind of walked in, is shooting the stuff, and you're there for your appointment, I'll tell the other person, or even if like we're actually doing something, I'll say, you got to wait because so-and-so has an appointment. Because your time's valuable, probably more valuable than mine. Well, no, not really, but it is important relative to this class. So the best thing you can do is make an appointment, and that way that time is yours. Also, let me know if you can ahead of time what you have problems with, because then I can think about it in a different way and explain it in a different way. Because if I just tell it to you the same way I told it in class, you didn't get it then, you're probably not going to get it, you know, face to face in office hours, and you'll be too polite to say, I still don't get it. So at least give me a heads up. Same thing with Elizabeth. When Elizabeth figures out, based on schedules, hers and yours, when the SI sessions are going to be, it's like making me, it sounds like I'm in an echo chamber. Do both of these things have mics? The Apple ones? Yeah. Okay, let me, can you still hear me, Jalen?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. New technology, right? What was that? See, train of thought, gone. So anyway, with the office hours thing with Elizabeth, she's going to run SI sessions probably one a week, at least. And that way, it's like kind of, she's going to deal with questions, deal with issues. She's not going to re-lecture on what I already lectured on during that week. So bring whatever questions you have, or if you wanted to go over something like allopatric speciation or competitive exclusion, or any of the things that we're going to talk about over the course of the course, it gives her a heads up so she can think about it and prepare, and she can let me know. You know, she always lets me know at the end of the SI sessions, this is what a lot of people seem to have trouble with. Here's who came, you know, not like I'm checking up on you, but it's kind of like, if I tell you, I'm like, I think you're having problems, I think you need to go to office or go to SI sessions, and you're not, then at least I can, you know, chase you down and be like, I really think you should go to SI sessions, or come see me during office hours. And that's another thing. I am not that scary. I mean, I think I'm being kind of like funny and silly today. Everybody has like angry days, but I don't know, if you have trouble, come see me. Go see Elizabeth. If you can't make the SI session, talk to her. She'll probably, because she's a martyr, she will probably meet with you more than she should. And I will scold her for putting in too much time with the SI stuff, because one, she only gets paid so much. So sometimes she's doing it because she's nice. And two, she's got her own stuff as a double major in biology and psychology to, you know, do her own thing, plus her research. So come see either or both of us, preferably both of us. And if you can't make my office hours, we'll set up a time outside, because I'm here every day. I'm here pretty much every day from sometime around 7 to 7:15 in the morning till usually like, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock at night, sometimes longer. You know, my family's all up in Boston. They've been up there like for 8 years. And I got one more, like at the end of next year, my wife gets to retire and come down here. So at least then you won't see me that often, but you won't be in this class again, I hope, next year. So we'll just set up a time and do it. Face-to-face is always better. You know, pretty much I can fit like one person in my office based on COVID. But if a number of people, like study group is like, we all have a problem with this, can we make an appointment so we can all talk about this at the same time? We'll just come down here to one of the rooms. Right before tests and quizzes, Elizabeth usually has like a little extra stuff. If she thinks, or if you guys are like, can you come to the review session to help? I'm like, yeah, sure. Again, what else do I have to do, right? I don't have a life. It's sad. No, but I will come. I will maybe have a session to address a lot of questions, go over things. And you'll figure out, because I'll tell you specifically, this is going to be an essay on your test. This is going to be essay on your test. There's no surprises. I still got to get used to talking continuously, like in lecture mode. So there shouldn't be any surprises. And Elizabeth will tell you, you really should know this because he tends to ask this as a short answer or essay question. And if you can do it on an essay, you can do it multiple choice, matching, fill in the blank, definition, you know, and you have a mix on the tests and quizzes. And I'll talk about the tests and quizzes now. Every quiz, every test in the lecture is cumulative. Covers everything from the first day of class to as far as we got the lecture prior to the quiz or exam. In the lab, you have lab practicals. You have 2. You know, they're each worth, I think, 10% of your total course grade. Then you have your lab notebook. The lab practicals cover half of the material that we covered in the lab for the first half of the course. The second one covers the second half of the material. However, every lab for whatever phylum or group of organisms that we're talking about and looking at in that lab, there's a pre-lab lecture for that. That is testable in lecture as well. So the practical is more recognizing what you're looking at, knowing, you know, what the classification information is on it, what the natural history, what the anatomy is, what the ecology is, so on and so forth. And I'll talk more about that in the lab on Tuesday, and Elizabeth will also talk about that stuff as well. But with the lecture stuff, the best thing you can do, well, one, take notes in class, whether you take them on your computer or write them down, and remind me to do the attendance thing. Because I think we're only missing, no, we're not missing Angela, we got everybody. But I'll do it anyway, because they make me. So the best thing you can do is read your notes every day, beginning to end. Not trying to focus on material. Same with a textbook. Hopefully you've got a textbook. There is a digital, at least one, maybe not 2, or maybe 2 digital versions that are on the Moodle page. One's a zoology text. The other one is Integrated Principles of Zoology. I might have it on there. They might have told me I have to take it off because of copyright stuff. But you can find 13th, 14th, even 15th editions of Hickman, the actual textbook that we use, PDFs online for free. The only thing that's really changed up through the 17th, or it might be the 18th edition at this point, is some of the classification. And I don't really worry too much about classification changes, much more on focusing on the characteristics of the particular phylum that we're talking about on that particular day. So any like changes to classification, I'll usually address it in class. But whatever textbook you have, I'm gonna get blinded by the light. Whatever textbook you have to read it in order to benefit from it. You don't just want to use it as a doorstop. Plus, it's like $200 if you buy it, like probably through this online bookstore nonsense. You're probably gonna pay way too much money for the textbook. You can find it cheaper elsewhere. But how many of you like reading textbooks? Elizabeth does, but okay. They're not written in a way that makes it like, I can't put this thing down. It's so exciting. Well, for me, it's like that. But every chapter in a textbook like this, you know, big format textbook, it's like every page is like almost 10 pages of double spaced text. And if every chapter is like 40 pages, you know, it's like you're reading like several hundred pages of 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, and you're trying to commit all of that to memory. You can't. Unless you've got an eidetic memory, you can't, which means if you've got a photographic memory, oh, I can look at it and then I remember it. I have like a pseudo photographic memory. A lot of stuff's out of focus, but it's like, it's there. I'm like, oh, okay, I remember it. But I've also been reading a lot longer than you guys have. I don't want you to read for comprehension. I want you to read for overview, because I won't cover everything on every page in every chapter of a 1,000-page textbook. You know, if you've had AP biology courses in high school, that's what they try to do. They try to cover like the whole textbook. You know, you just don't do it well. So I don't try. Pick and choose. What are the important things you need to know out of that chapter, you know, for the content? So if you read it as fast as you can, don't take notes. Those of you who have like 4, 5, 7 different color highlighters and have a system to highlight stuff in the textbook, stop it. Stop the madness. It takes more time to do that, and you really don't get as much out of it. Plus, it just gets confusing when you're looking at the textbook. You know what's important in the textbook already? Like when you're reading through it, how do you know what like is like an important thing? What do? They bold it. So it's like, if nothing else, if it's bold-faced in the textbook, it's like, oh, maybe I should pay attention to that. But in this textbook, they kind of have like a summary of the phylum characteristics, like a little block. I'd like hand copy that into your notes at the beginning of every section when we're going to talk about it in class. That way, if you read the material in the textbook, you kind of have like, here are the key things for this phylum already in my notebook. Then you look at the slides, or the PowerPoint slides, which you have all of them for the entire course already. And then I cover the stuff in class. You've read the textbook as fast as you can. You read the chapters. You didn't understand everything, but when I talk about it in lecture, then you can be like, oh, that's what they were talking about. Or, oh, this is an example of what he just talked about. And he didn't give us this example, but oh, I can add that example into my notes under that topic. So you'll understand the chapter in the textbook better after we've covered it in lecture than before, because I think part of the reason why most people don't like to read, or they lose patience with preparing and reading ahead, is because one, they put it off for too long, and two, if you don't understand what you're reading, you don't want to read it. You're like, it's like pulling teeth. But if you just read for overview, you know, you get the gist of what the topic is, then I cover it in class, and you're like, then the light goes on, then go back and reread the specific things that I covered in the textbook, backfill your notes. That's where you can use like 2 colors of ink, you know, black for your notes that you take during class, and blue for the stuff you add in from the textbook to clarify things. Then you get a really good working set of notes. If there are gaps in your notes, if you don't understand something, intuitively, you don't want to commit something you don't understand to memory. So that's when you go see Elizabeth, you come see me during office hours, you ask questions in class, and you're like, can you clarify this particular topic again? That way, once you fully understand it, it's easier to commit the whole thing to memory. Because if you read your notes every day, beginning to end, beginning to end, beginning to end, as fast as you can, it's going to take you like maybe 10 or 15 minutes. 10 or 15 minutes out of the day, out of your life. Takes me that long to brush my teeth and floss and use mouthwash. I'm doing a new regimen because my dentist is like, why don't you try something new? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I haven't seen him in a year, pandemic. But anyway, I digress. So if you read your notes over and over and over again, even when we're adding stuff to it, and you go back to the beginning, the stuff that's earlier, it's like you're reading it much faster, then you slow down a little bit to the stuff that's a little bit fresher. And you're going to get to the point where when you turn the page, you already see in your head the picture of what the next page in your notes is. When you get to that stage, you've committed it to long-term memory. And when you see questions on a quiz, on a test, on a practical that relates to that topic, you're going to flash to that page in your notes because you're going to know exactly where it is. So it's almost like an open notebook exam, because if you know your notes well enough it's like you can find that information and then piece together the answer on the essay. You know, because essay answers usually require you to pull stuff from a bunch of different places. And if you don't know where to look, it doesn't work. It's kind of like an open notes exam. I've done that in class, and students tend to do worse when it's open book than if they actually study. Reason being is they don't study, and they think they can just find it in the time they have in the notebook during an exam. Not going to happen, my friends. It's going to end badly. That's why I stopped doing it. But if you follow this method, I guarantee you, you're going to do better. And this is also why every quiz, every test is cumulative. Because if you go back and review the material every day and just go through it, you're going to know everything for every assessment. And it's going to be to the point where you're like, I don't really think I have to study. I don't have to cram, which is what you guys think studying is, the day or 2 days before the test or quiz. You should be able to just relax, binge a little bit on Netflix or Prime, or, you know, watch a couple of episodes of The Mandalorian, and then get a good night's sleep, get up, take the test, and then you're good to go. The way the tests tend to run, though, I'm probably going to do them online anyway through Moodle. One, because the odds are there are going to be times on campus where some of you are not going to be here in class, either because you're scared because COVID's floating around, or maybe you have to isolate or quarantine because you were exposed to somebody who didn't follow the rules. On that note, please follow the rules, wear the masks, do social distancing as much as possible, because even though you don't get sick from it, maybe, you might kill me. And my kids might be a little bit pissed off if I die. I'd probably be a little pissed off if I died. But who would listen, because I'm dead. But again, that's the thing. It's like, you got a lot of older faculty here. You know, I'm like mid-50s. I'm like in heart attack range, but I'm also in COVID range. Again, just because I never get sick doesn't mean that I get sick once and then I die. You know, so it could happen. And then the person who would replace me, guaranteed nowhere near as much fun. You know, he'd be complaining the whole time, but that's okay. So prepare for your quizzes, exams, and stuff that way. If I do it all online, usually I don't want to lose class time. That's one of the cool things. If you do an online exam, I'm like, oh, I usually open it up from this time to this time. Usually it's a 48-hour period, which is ripe for cheating. It's kind of like, oh, I already took the test or quiz. Here are the questions. Here are the essays. Well, the essays you already know what are going to be on there because I told you it's going to be on there. But that's facilitation. That's an honor code violation. And inevitably, somebody is going to tell me so-and-so is letting so-and-so do this. And I don't want to be put into a situation where I have to bring you up on an honor code violation. This course isn't that hard. It ain't rocket science. It's just a lot of stuff. It's just a lot of information. And if you don't stay on top of it, you're going to die in place. That's the cold, hard, blunt truth of it. There's nothing here. You don't do math. There are no formulas. Maybe one or two, but they're like not really that hard. It's fairly straightforward information that you have to weave together to understand not only what groups we're talking about and what the characteristics of those groups are, but how they interact with each other in an ecological context. And why does that matter to us as a species? So that's kind of like how things are going to go in the class. Textbook stuff, some additional information, all of this, just read through it because it's required to be in there. You're expected to be in class. If you're living on campus, you're expected to be in class face-to-face. I mean, think about why you came back to live on campus. You didn't come back to campus to sit in your room and Zoom your classes. Zoom sucks. I'm sorry, I hate it. It's not that I can't do it. I mean, if I were just doing Zoom and nothing else, one, I wouldn't have to wear this damn mask because I could sit in my office and do it that way, or actually sit in this room and still, here, look at the dead things. But bottom line is, I have to play to two audiences. So it's kind of like, I have to make sure I don't ignore Jalen and Madison who are on Zoom, but I can't just talk to the computer because, 17 of you are in the class, face to face in here. So it's tough to teach the two audiences. And I understand why some of the faculty that you probably have courses with this term are doing it remote. Well, some of them are old. Some of them are afraid of getting COVID and dying. We had some problems on campus last semester with, the plague going around. If one of you, in the end, like I started out with classes like this in the fall. And the fall was terrible, 7-week thing. None of the faculty wanted to do it. For various reasons, it was decided to go that way. And it wasn't good. It's not the way you learn. And I started out with class sizes like this. And in the end, it was like one person in the room. And I'm okay. I will come in and I will lecture and do this face to face if only one of you actually wants to be here. Because that's why you're here and that's why I'm here. But it's much better if you're actually here because you can see the stuff in 3D that I'm showing. I may or may not pass stuff around because, again, the whole COVID thing, unless I just have you put gloves on and then it's like, oh, I can pass stuff around. But I'll probably just walk around and show you the dead thing in the bottle or whatever the case is. So there are going to be times when you can't come, or there are going to be times where I was exposed to somebody and they just let me know. So I have to do it remotely by Zoom. I will never put you at risk. Please don't put me at risk. Don't put each other at risk because this only works if everybody follows the rules. And as soon as the people stop following the rules, everything goes out the window. And I don't want you to be scared and go sit in your rooms and Zoom class because that's not what you're paying for. It's not as good. I don't care what anybody says. I should pause the recording. But I'm like, remote learning, it's not as good as the real thing. But it's better than asynchronous stuff. So on that note, it's like if you miss class, if you're quarantined, if you're isolated, but you're not feeling terrible, Zoom in, do the class live. Because guaranteed you're going to fall behind. You're not going to watch the videos after the fact. And I can tell how many times people have watched on VidGrid the videos that are recorded. I can see by IP address. And I can usually figure out, who it is if I really want to. Just because it's like if I know you weren't here and then me. But 9 times out of 10, it's like maybe one person they watch for a little bit, especially last semester when it's like 2.5 hours long. You're like, I can't watch it. Most of you can't watch a TV show for 2.5 hours. You're not going to watch a bad TV show for 2.5 hours. I'll guarantee it. So do it live if you possibly can. Do it remotely, synchronous, if you can't be here in class. Or if you're like, Madison and you're remote all the time. Because you will fall behind and it's not going to end well. And you can't ask questions if you watch the video. If you've got questions, whether you're here or remote, shout it out. Don't play with the chat thing because I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I can't look at the chat while sharing the screen and talking in class without colossally screwing up. Multitasking, generally speaking, we can't do. We just think we can. I don't even pretend to be able to multitask. That's why they're so quiet. Okay, so, on that, here's the breakdown. You can figure out your grade theoretically at any given point in time in the course if you follow the weights, the percentages of what things are worth, and then you calculate that percentage out of what you've already done. Because like if you do it without like adjusting for, I've only covered like 50% of the material, and you calculate your grade, it's not going to work. But in the end, it's like if you can't figure out like where you stand, and just talk to me, talk to Elizabeth, and I'll tell you how deep the water is. But try to stay on top of things. You do have a research paper. It's an endangered species paper. You have to pick a topic. I think I've already put a Google sheet that you click, you put in your name, you put in your species, you put in the common name. It's a first come, first serve kind of deal. If somebody else has already picked the species that you're interested in, you can't do it. You can do endangered subspecies, because some subspecies are endangered, other subspecies within the overall species may not be endangered. If there's any question as to whether or not it's actually an endangered species, talk to me about it. Talk to Elizabeth about it. You can check the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Endangered Species page. You can also check the IUCN Red List, which I think there are links to those, or at least they're described in the writing prompt for the paper. That's due at the end of the semester, probably like the week before classes end. Start working on it now. Pick your species, start looking for information. If there's not a lot of information on the species, if a lot of research hasn't been done on it to determine why it's endangered, you may want to pick a different species. If it seems like there's not a lot out there, you know, talk to me about it, and I'll be like, yeah, well, maybe I could suggest to you another species, perhaps. But the goal of this is, one, learn about the Endangered Species Program. Two, learn something about a species that you're really, really interested in. Please don't do the panda. I see too many panda papers, or like, you know, gray wolves. I'm like, okay, I'll still go with gray wolves, red wolves, but, you know, pick another carnivore. Carnivores are cool. You don't have to do an animal. You can do a plant. You don't have to do a warm and fuzzy. I'm a mammologist, so I like mammals, but, you know, maybe you have a bearded dragon at home. My oldest daughter has a bearded dragon who's like 2 feet long. Gaius, he's really cool. I'm really hoping that if she goes off to, she's an archaeologist, Egyptologist. So if she goes off on like digs for a couple of months, I'm like, Gaius can come stay with me down in Virginia, you know, because we get along. He's cold, I'm cold. It's cool. But it's like, pick something that you're interested in finding out more information about. And, you know, because it'll mean more to you. And then I'll probably learn something from it, because I got to read these silly things. No. It fulfills one of the writing competency requirements for the college, for the core curriculum. So even if you cover information that's really, really relevant, if you cover it poorly from a grammatical perspective, you may have to go into remedial English, even if you've already fulfilled the English requirements. So don't wait to the last minute. Don't turn in a piece of crap, because the writing competency people might be like, yeah, you might get an email saying, you need to be in like English 100 again. So you don't want to be put into that boat. So Elizabeth will probably talk about that, and I'll talk about that as well a little bit later. But the criteria for that paper, there's a whole thing on Moodle. Those are the grade standards. If you're a 0.5 in the calculation, or generally speaking, if it's like a 0.45, then it becomes a 0.5, and then it becomes the next higher whole number. Don't beg, don't quibble for like, oh, but I'm only this far. I'm like, no, you know, it ends here. So it's kind of like, you know what you need to get relative to this range. You don't want this. Actually, you don't want anything. I'm not giving you the finger. You don't want anything below a C. In a lot of cases, C's are prerequisites for other courses. If you're thinking about going to any type of graduate health or medical, dental, vet, or God forbid, real graduate school, research-based, you kind of want to be here or higher. Because that's the reality of the situation, particularly if you are not a hard science major. If you're only taking the prereqs and your sociology, English, you know, something that's not in the natural sciences. Psychology sometimes is in the social sciences. Here it's in the natural sciences, so it's different. But they tend to focus on your science prereqs: biology, chemistry, physics, your math. You know, those types of courses usually are better indicators than interpretive dance as to whether or not you can handle, not picking on the theater majors. Because I like going to the theater. That's one of the things I actually miss because of the pandemic and the big drive-in movie thing down there at the Moonlight. I've done it twice. I'm just like, it's not the same thing. So I just dress up at home and you know, talk. But anyway, no, I don't. This is kind of the way it works. So it's like they're going to focus on your science prereqs, PA school, DPT, this and that. You know, if you're exercise science, it's cool. They're going to look at all the exercise science stuff as well. But they're also going to look potentially at physics, organic chemistry. If you're an exercise science major, you took the exercise because you want to go to med school, DO school, whatever the case is. If you have aspirations for those graduate professional schools, talk to me. I am the chair of biology, and I can tell you about, you know, what are the odds are. Talk to Dr. Qualls, talk to JP Barfield. There is a pre-health club. If you're new and you haven't joined it, please do so because they have all the information to help you along your path. So go through the rest of this stuff. Makeups, I generally don't do them. Makeups are a privilege, not a right. The excuse you give for missing an assessment has to be acceptable to me. It might be acceptable to you, but if it's not acceptable to me, you don't get a makeup. So, especially with the fact that I'm giving you 48 hours to take the bloody thing. I forgot. For 48 hours, I forgot. No, because I remind you, Elizabeth reminds you, we have review sessions, things like that. You know the event is coming. Don't put it off till the last minute. Set reminders in your phone because, look at that. That's when they are. That's not changing. So that date is probably going to be when it begins. It's either going to be when it begins or when it ends. You know, it's a 48-hour window, so it's kind of like up to this point, this is what's going to be on the test or quiz. It starts at 7 p.m. on this Friday night, and it ends at 7 p.m. on Sunday night, whatever the case is. So you're going to have that bracketed window to take it, but you should be ready to take it by the date that's indicated. And if you've been reading the material over and over and over again, making your own study guides, do whatever they allow you to do for group study sessions, because I know that's also restricted relative to COVID. But you can reserve a room and actually get in there and use the screen and use the boards. And as long as it doesn't exceed capacity of the rooms and you guys play it safe, there's no reason why you can't still do the study group thing. It does tend to help. Nobody should suffer through this class alone. That's why I like team teaching, because then you don't suffer as the professor alone in the course. But the final exam, I do have the date for the final. And again, the final is going to be, you got this much time to take it. It's going to be online as well. Just because that way we don't have to give up a class period for an exam. That just means, hey, we can cover more cool stuff if we do the stuff outside of class time. I'll talk about lab notebooks in lab on Tuesday. I really probably should put something in writing. I've been meaning to do that for like 20 odd years. I just never got around to it. But again, do it the lab final, because that is the lab final. Term papers probably due just before the lab final, because I need time to read those since there's so many of them. And then all the EHC policies. These changed. We added in a new anti-racism one and a few others. So go through them just so you're aware of the policies, what you can do, what you're expected to do, what you shouldn't do, what you shouldn't say, or how you should say it. Because again, words matter, both in the context of class and how you interact. Academic integrity, don't cheat. I will always figure it out. And then it will make me really, really sad. You know, and that's the worst part about academic integrity violations. You know, it's like your mom guilting you because, or Monsignor Helmick. You know, he's like looking at me at church. I'm Catholic, and he used to be like, "Haven't seen you in a while," and I'm like, "I know, I've been busy." He's like, "I see your kids more than I see you," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, I know." So again, it's like. And my mother always did a great line of guilt. You know, Filipino, Roman Catholic physicians, just like, I'm like, okay. I know I'm a failure. I'm a PhD. I'm not a medical doctor. Both my parents are physicians. But my brother's a personal trainer. So, COVID. But anyway, just go through the syllabus when you get the opportunity. And if you have questions about it, ask me or ask Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you want to say anything? You can turn like your Zoom mic on, and so Jalen and Madison can know you. But at least then you get to know who Madison is, because you're going to spend a lot of time with her. Not as much as you do with me, but you know, she's nicer than I am. Oh, okay. You got to speak up, girl. You got a mask on and you're soft spoken. Say it! Say it! Crazy.
Okay. Hello. Hate that. Hey, I know some of you. I don't know all of you. I hope you know all of you. I love this class. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't love this class. And my goal is to make sure that you, or to try and encourage that you love it too, because it's really great. It's fun stuff. And yeah, I can help you as much as you, like he said, as much as you like utilize me. So anytime you need, you know, you have any questions, you want to go over some stuff, so I will kind of martyr myself, kind of, if you, you know, you want to have a session outside of our session, a session outside the session, whatever, I'll be there. So hope I can help you guys.
Excellent. All right, thanks, Elizabeth. I'm loud. It's just the way I am. And Elizabeth will figure out the SI session time. I don't know however you figure that out, go for it. Okay, so again, here is the Moodle page. If you haven't checked it out, check announcements at least twice a day. When you get up in the morning, before you go to bed. If there's something that is cool or something that I need you to know, I'm going to do it through announcements, and an email is going to automatically go out to the email that is connected to Moodle, not your personal email. Technically, I'm not supposed to send stuff to your personal email addresses. I'm not going to send stuff from my personal email addresses. I do have this. It's actually an iPhone 5 SE, in case anybody wondered. It's sad but true. My kids have better phones than I do, and I get phone hand-me-downs. I check it like 10,000 times a day. So email, I check it a lot. Texting, I check it a lot. If you're going to text me with a question, if it's a long question, put it in a memo, put it in an email. If it's something that like needs addressing like immediately, if there's a problem, if I go, I just got in a car accident or whatever, I'm like, well, why are you texting me? Call 911. But you can do that. Just identify who you are. Just because, like, if it's just a phone number, I'm like, which class are you in? What's going on? So at least tell me who you are and what your class is. Same thing with email. Just that way, until I get to know, you know, who you are, then at least I can already get into the mindset for that. Again, here's all the information. There's a lot of stuff on there, dissection images. Actually, this is, I'll put it in your view because there's a lot of stuff on there that it's secret. So I don't want you to see it, no. So this is what you should see when you're looking on your own Moodle site. This is a digital version of a textbook. Just gotta love the network here. Slowest network money can buy. Apogee means apology. That's what we were joking about. I think we just signed on for another 5 years. It's Miller Zoology. Doesn't have anything on plants in there, but I've already put links for plant stuff from like UC Berkeley out there. But if you can't afford Hickman, and I know, you know, expensive textbook, particularly if you're going to get the latest edition, you can use this. You can use an older version of Hickman. You can use any undergraduate level zoology textbook. You just need a textbook because computers, online stuff, sometimes, hey, the network goes down. And if you don't have something that you can actually physically look at, like this thing, I would download the PDF onto your computer. So even if the network's down, you have a textbook that you can use. And it only works again if you actually read it. So I hate this bar. That's why I'm not a lawyer. Just don't like the bar. Ha ha ha! Humor! Come on! All right. Dissection images. There's like a photo atlas. It's an old school black and white one that I scanned. way out of print. Here's the sign-up sheet for the endangered species paper. Here is the criteria for the term paper itself. And we're going to be starting out momentarily with this particular topic. So I've broken up, again, you have all your presentations, PowerPoint ones on there, plus links to, videos, things like that that are useful. Sometimes they're going to be assigned on the course and testable. So everything within this topic, systematics, phylogeny, and evolution, it's in one section. So I've broken up each major topic into sections. So everything for that section for the lecture, I think I didn't do it. I think I did it differently for the lab. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I've got the labs broken up separately. So all of these things, it's topic specific. And we're going to go in the order of coverage, the way things are laid out in the syllabus and the way they're laid out, generally speaking, on Moodle. When we get to certain things like, microscopy, histology, lab stuff, I still have it, now I still have it, I see, integrated in with the overall topic. So anything that's lab related, we're going to be doing that in the lab. And we do have basic videos, some of them made by my wife. She's at Northeastern University, microbiologist, and stuff that just generally will help you out for it. So everything you need is there. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to buy a lab manual. The only thing you need is a textbook. And if you want to go with Miller text, because you can't afford or can't find an older edition of Hickman, it's okay. Just use the table of contents and the index at the back and look up the topics that we're covering, and then just use that as your textbook. Again, I don't care. I don't have any loyalty to Hickman. It's just what I've always used because I like it. But again, if you want to use something else, that's fine. You just got to read it. So everything that we need is here. And I got a whole section on movies for the class. Certain things I'm going to say you should watch, like the Serengeti Rules. You can watch that now. Maybe you watched it over Christmas. Maybe you've already seen it. I'd say watch it again because we're going to talk about it in the context of class when we get into more of the ecology stuff. E.O. Wilson, sociobiologist, we're going to talk about him in class. But a lot of good, Neil Shubin. He's at he's a dean at U Chicago now, but he's also an anatomist. Paleontologist, talks about vertebrate evolution in those. Parasites Eating Us Alive, that's a really cool documentary. Testable. It's going to be on probably exam number 2, my guess is. So at some point, you're going to watch the movie. And I'll remind you, don't forget to watch this because it's going to be on tests and quizzes. Do the JavaScript test at some point in time before, preferably a couple of days before we have the first quiz, because you need JavaScript enabled on your computer, 1, for the actual test to work, and 2, for my security measures to work. If you don't have JavaScript enabled, and if it's not at least one of the later versions of Java, you're going to have crashes during the tests and quizzes. So I will probably set up like a practice test or quiz that you can take just to make sure that your system works. Anybody have a Chromebook? Okay. Chromebooks tend to have problems with everything that we have. I'm not telling you to go out and buy yourself a new computer, but if you have a desktop computer on top of your Chromebook, I would probably take any online assessments for most of your classes on that if you can. But I don't know, if you haven't had problems with your Chromebook so far, it's probably okay. I know the Chromebooks do not work with the Respondus software. That's part of the reason why I'm not using Respondus anymore. Too many problems, and a lot of kids have Chromebooks because they're inexpensive and they generally do the job for most things. For things that are due for me, you turn them in here in the Dropbox. Please do the survey of technology resources that you have at home. I mean, I know you're here on campus, so you have access to broadband internet. You probably have a computer here. I haven't gotten enough feedback on people that use tablets. I probably would recommend don't use a tablet for the assessment if you have a computer or access to a computer, because you can take the test from, I don't know if they've got the computers in the computer labs easily accessible for you guys now because of the whole COVID thing, but you can take the tests or quizzes there. I mean, I don't care where you take it physically. It's just, I prefer not to have problems. And if you do have issues, you're like, oh, I actually don't have a computer, I'd like to know, because then I can see if they can do something for you relative to that, like a loaner or something. I mean, hell, I have old computers sitting around. I'll let you borrow one. You're going to be turning in like annotated bibliography and outline of your paper, just so Elizabeth and I can take a look at it, make sure you're on topic. And again, we're going to talk about more. That's where you're turning your term paper, your lab notebooks. If you're face-to-face, it's going to be easy. You can physically turn it into me in lab at the practical. But if COVID screws things up, you're going to have to digitize it in PDF form and submit it. They do tend to get big. I've had like students turn in 2 volumes of the lab notebooks with all the information that they're looking at in class and drawing and doing so on and so forth. So read this over. There are apps that you can get on your phone, spend a couple of bucks, and you can take pictures and it'll organize it, put it into a PDF format, and then it's easy for you to just upload it. Or you can use some of the software programs that that are out here that helps you merge things into a single PDF, so on and so forth. If it's too big to submit through the Dropbox link, you're going to have to submit it through Google Drive. So there's a folder there on Google Drive. If your images are like high resolution and it's like a really big file, put it in that way. I would probably not make it in like such crazy resolution. I think it would probably be a good idea anyway to make a digital copy of it for yourself, just in case. And don't wait to the last minute, because some of you were here in the spring when things kind of came to a screeching halt and we had to shift to a remote mode of delivery. Could happen again. With COVID, all bets are off. All Zoom lectures, either for lecture or the lab lectures, the day that we do them, I'm going to put them up here so that you have them to review. If something happened and you're just like, I don't quite remember what he said, you can go through and you can scroll through and you can listen to that section again and backfill your notes. So all that stuff will be there. All right, so that's the Moodle page for the class. Anybody have any questions before we actually start doing something like real, biological? And sooner or later, particularly for those of you that are here, I mean, I already know Jalen from another class, and I don't know math, but I do see your pictures, so I will recognize you again at some point. But those of you who are like here face to face or mask to mask, at some point in time, I will get to know you by like the top part of your head. The eyes are the expressive part anyway. I may be crazy enough to be like, take a selfie of yourself with and without your mask and put it on this page with your name so I can start getting to learn the faces. Usually I do that myself anyway, but I will figure out who you are and then we'll go from there. All right. Now we're gonna try. Bald. No, that's not it. All right, let's try something new. Where is it? Really? There we are. All right. And again, you guys already have, whoops, let me share that. Go back. There. Sometimes this computer doesn't comply. There we go. All right. Jalen Madison, can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to do something that's probably going to mess it up for you guys. Let me see. Does it look normal?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Oh, wow. First time for everything. All right. So now we get into the meat of the matter. All right. So we're going to talk about phylogeny, taxonomy. Ah, shit. So of course it looks normal for you guys, but not normal for the class.
It kind of looks shifted for us too.
Okay. What I'm going to do, let's see. I'll probably switch to a different computer for later. So I'm just going to keep it on. How does it look now? I know it looks like meh, but at least it's probably not shifted.
Yeah, we can see the whole thing
A
now.
little bit better. Okay. Well, you all have it on your computers, like the file itself, so you can always look at that on your own. All right. So we're going to talk about phylogeny, taxonomy, and systematics. So I'll give you some of the definitions for what they are. So when we talk about, and even though you have them on the slides, write them in your notes because it'll help you learn them better. So when we talk about the phylogeny of an organism, we're talking about the evolutionary relationships, among taxonomic groups. And again, it's like I'm throwing out terms that are very familiar to me, but they may not be not that familiar to you. So when we talk about taxonomic groups, it's a general term. So the singular, taxon, it's a generic term for some biological species. The thing about using the term taxon versus taxa, taxon is kind of the singular. So you're kind of talking about a species, but you're not talking about a specific one. Like you can make it, it's like if I'm talking about this particular taxon, and previously I said, oh, we're going to talk about this white-footed mouse, Paramyscus leucopus, white-footed mouse. And then I refer to like, well, this particular taxon, I'm using it in the context of that particular species, but it can also be a general term. Taxa, T-A-X-A, it's plural. So you're talking about multiple species, perhaps within a taxonomic group. So one of the things that you're going to get used to fairly quickly in this class is a lot of new terminology. So I would definitely write these down, write the definitions in your notebook, probably make your own kind of like side sheet of definitions, like you used to do flashcards and all that stuff. You can do the flashcard thing if you want to. It's just, it takes an awful lot of time to write out the flashcards when you can just read your notes over and over and over again, and you get the same effect in the end. But again, learn the vocabulary. So when we talk about phylogenetics, we're essentially studying the evolutionary relationships among a taxonomic group of organisms. Maybe we're looking at the relationships, evolutionary relationships, phylogenetic relationships among a bunch of species within the same genus. So maybe we're looking at 10 different species, 10 taxa within the genus Paramyscus, or like we're looking at hominids. We're looking at Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Homo sapiens, Homo neanderthalis. So we're looking at a bunch of different species, a bunch of taxa within the same genus. Or maybe we're comparing taxa within the genus Homo to other non-human primates, that are chimpanzees in the genus Pan, P-A-N. So again, it's like the terms, you're going to get used to how they're used in essentially phylogenetics and systematics. Now, systematics, I'm a systematist. Dr. Felix, he's an ichthyologist, he's a paleontologist, and he's a systematic evolutionary biologist. Dr. Brezois, he's a plant population geneticist, he's a systematist. Dr. Bova, some of you may have had him for Gen Bio for 117. He's an entomologist. He studies insects, but he's also a systematist. So people like us who are, and that's basically all the systematists in the department. Systematists study the diversification of living forms, past and present. So that's where the paleontology comes in, and the relationships among those groups over time. Because again, it's kind of like not everything, actually, most things that have existed are extinct. You know, what we're looking at now, roughly the 2 million species, you know, and that's a big part of what this course actually covers, is the diversity of taxa, the characteristics that define them, and their relationships throughout time. Because you can't just forget about extinct species. You know, DNA is not the answer to everything, right? Sometimes it's not the answer to anything. But, you know, when you think about how we determine the phylogenetic relationships, the evolutionary relationships among different taxonomic groups, we use different methodologies. We use DNA, we use RNA, we use comparative anatomy, we use chromosome, karyotype analysis, we use biochemistry. There are a lot of systematic data sets, different types of data that help us determine what the evolutionary relationships among the different taxonomic groups are. So systematics is a field, you know, this is how we do this so we can figure out what the phylogenies are. You know, you study the evolution and diversity of form. You know, you think about comparative anatomy, and maybe you're comparing shape, presence, absence of different bones of the skull, number of vertebrae in the vertebral column, shape of limb structure relative to type of locomotion. And you're comparing that among different groups. And maybe you're looking at the evolution of cursorial behavior, like cursorial, cursorial, it's running. That's the fancy term for running. So you have like pursuit predators that are chasing other animals on the Serengeti Plains, and you want to investigate, you know, the evolution of the skeleton relative to locomotion. And then maybe you get into comparative musculature. So there's a lot of things that systematists study, and also anatomists, you know, a lot of anatomists are also systematists. So it's kind of, when we think about systematics and phylogenetics, it's about figuring out the relationships of taxa, past and present, throughout time. And we depict this, you know, you've all seen these branching diagrams, these phylogenetic trees. Philo literally means branch. You know, if you've ever taken Latin or Greek, it's going to help you in this class. If you ever wondered, why do I have to take Latin or Greek? In biology, that's like one place it actually comes in handy. All of my kids, they went to Latin schools. So they have had anywhere from 4 to 5 years of Latin. And then my archaeologist, Egyptologist daughter took more Latin, Greek, all the craziness like in undergrad and grad school. And it was just kind of always fun. Makes for interesting conversations in dead languages back, at Thanksgiving. All right, last but not least, taxonomy. So taxonomy is a subdiscipline of systematics. It's kind of the part of systematic biology that deals with naming species and, putting them where they actually belong based on shared characteristics. So it's a little bit fuzzy between the systematist and the taxonomist because pretty much every systematist is a taxonomist. If you do this, you also do that. So all of those faculty members that I talked about in the department, we do all of this stuff because you really can't give something a name. Ooh, maybe it's a new species, maybe it's a new subspecies, if you haven't studied the relationships of what you're looking at with all the other stuff that's out there in the group that you think it belongs to, or if you're designating a whole new group. And then, using phylogenetics and systematics, you got to give it a name and you got to place it where it belongs. And you've got to depict that on a phylogenetic tree so other people can basically see, yeah, okay, I might not be a systematist, but I can interpret what a phylogenetic tree means when you're looking at the relationships of taxa on the different branches. So, this is kind of like what we do. So everything that we cover in this course is in the context of the phylogeny of the organisms. And we look at different systematic characters that define those groups. And then we determine what the relationships of those groups are. So every group that we talk about, we're going to talk about it in these contexts throughout the term. All right, come on. Ooh, don't want that. All right, so when we think about biological diversity or biodiversity, it's a contraction of the term biological diversity. What does that mean to you? It's probably on there. Somebody shouted out, like, what does biodiversity mean to you? And don't worry about being wrong. It's okay. You're not going to be wrong because your answer will probably be partially right. Someone, anyone, except Elizabeth. Rachel! Oh no, Dr. A knows me. What does biodiversity mean to you? Different characteristics, things like that. Yeah, I mean, it's like I love putting students on the spot because you have to be able to be cold called, and even if you don't know something, you got to be able to talk about it. It's okay not to know stuff, but you want to learn about stuff. So even if you took biodiversity and you broke it down into biology, the study of life, and diversity, you know, the variety of different forms of whatever you're looking at, you know, the variety and variability of biological species. You know, in the narrowest sense, when you think about what a definition of biodiversity is, you know, it's the number of species that you have in a particular place. But then you got to throw in the time component, right? Because most things that ever existed are dead, right? So now you're looking at the diversity of extinct species. You're looking at the relationships of the extinct ones to each other and the relationships to the ones that are still alive. And you're kind of tracing that through time. Rachel brought up DNA and genetics. Well, when you think about the genetics of species, we use so much DNA analysis now to distinguish one species from another, to look at the relationships among different species based on their genetics. You know, pretty much people are like, oh, you know, we don't even have to do all that other comparative anatomy nonsense or, you know, anything else, because DNA is the answer to everything. No, it's not, because it's a very narrow-minded way of looking at things, because there's a great deal of, that's all, folks. There's Looney Tunes. There's a great deal of diversity within and among individuals of the same species when you kind of look at them across their geographic distribution. You know, if you were looking at the genetic diversity within a population of one species, and again, another term, population. When we talk about populations, this classroom with all of us in it, we're all the same species. We're all physically located in this room. You can consider this room a population, which is separate from the population down in 217, where Dr. Bova might be with his 117 class. Different population. So if you're looking at taxa, if you're looking at particular species in geographic space, and you're looking at populations of that wide-ranging species, maybe it's an island, and you're looking at the genetic diversity within the individuals on that island, within that population, and maybe you're comparing the genetic diversity of that population with what's on the adjacent mainland, or another island, or another mountaintop, which mountaintop could be an island too, island in the sky, because you get separation based on altitude too. So you can look at diversity of those biologicals from a genetic perspective, looking at population genetic structure. Then you can also look at it from a time perspective, because you can go back, because DNA is like a story, and DNA changes over time, and we know, you know, what are the building blocks of DNA? Y'all had Gen Bio 117 equivalent somewhere, all of that crap, it's a prereq for this. So you're gonna have to refresh your memory on that if it was so long ago. But what are the building blocks of DNA? There's 4 of them. 4 letters. Yeah, what are the 4 letters that make up DNA nucleotides? DNA nucleotides are the building block of DNA. ACTG. If you go by base pairing rules, adenine pairs with thymine, cytosine pairs with guanine. So you got 4 nucleotide bases, adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine, and maybe you're looking at one gene, cytochrome B gene, which is one of the cytochrome oxidases in the electron transport chain. You know, remember ATP synthesis and all that fun stuff. So it's a fairly conserved gene because if you make it change too much, altering around those DNA nucleotides, it might not work, and then electron transport may not work. So, you know, there's a little bit of variability in that gene. And if you look at that gene across populations, you can compare the diversity of DNA across those populations. That falls into biodiversity, because if you have a lot of species, and if you have a lot of individuals of a particular species in an area, you would assume they have a lot of genetic diversity. But maybe you've had genetic bottlenecks over time, you've had population crashes, and those who survived expand out. You know, selective pressures. You know, remember this stuff from Gen Bio 2. When you think about, or Gen Bio, not Gen Bio 2, but Gen Bio as well. When you think about natural selection, which is, you know, why is natural selection so significant? Why was it a major paradigm shift when Darwin and Wallace figured out, you know, how natural selection works? Why does that matter? What is it the mechanism of? Evolution, exactly. Remember, you got to speak out loud because you got the mask on, right? What's your name? Sarah? Walters? Excellent. Okay, I'll get you guys down as time goes. That's where the lab comes in, because in the lab, I get to know you better, COVID notwithstanding. But anyway, so when we think about, what was I talking about before, like we went off on who you were? Oh, natural selection. You see, I got to take this like medication called Prevagen. It improves memory. The jellyfish. Oh, we're gonna have fun in this class, Sarah. All right. So when you think about natural selection, we still got 5 minutes. Defined as what or how evolution operates, you know, evolution wasn't anything really. Wasn't overly contentious, or wasn't as overly contentious as people think at that particular time. You know, we just didn't know like how it worked in the context of the evolution of species. It's like, well, we obviously, the species arose, they persisted, they went extinct. But then when you're looking at different species, and some look more similar than others, and you're kind of doing the systematic thing, and you're doing the phylogenetic thing, and that's what Darwin did, and Wallace, Alfred Russel Wallace, you know, they kind of identified the mechanism by which natural selection and evolution, or they figured out that natural selection was the mechanism by which evolution operates, and the selective pressures in the environment are tied to that. You know, organisms adapt by natural selection to their environment, and either they survive or they don't survive. And when you think about, say, genetic bottlenecks, contractions of populations because, oh, I don't know, COVID, bubonic plague, smallpox. I mean, think about disease. Those of you who want to go into medicine and health and are like, what do I give a crap about, you know, evolution and natural selection? Well, evolutionary medicine is big in the teaching of in medical school now. It kind of came back and made a comeback, because when you think about who we are and how we react to things, it's basically the product of natural selection and evolution. Our immune systems are the product of natural selection and evolution. And when we have selective pressures in the environment, maybe it's the introduction of invasive species that are putting pressure on the species that exist in an area. And that causes some species to move from one place to another because of competition. And they come into contact with humans, and they have disease-causing organisms in their system that don't affect them, but they affect us. And that puts a selective pressure on our species, those populations, people die, and we're just a combination of genes. Those who survive, maybe it's because they have a good set of genes, a good immune system. They're the ones that end up repopulating after a lot of the others died because of natural selection. So sometimes, because you look at the genetics of populations and you can see, well, this is a big population, it must be healthy, but then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, you know, there's like 0 degree of genetic diversity in this population, which means they may be subject to something else that comes along that knocks them all out because you don't have variability in the genome. So again, this is all coming back to like what biodiversity is. It's not just the basic number of species you find in a given place. It involves a lot more. It also involves habitat, ecology, and we're going to talk about all that stuff as we go through the course. So we've got all this biological diversity. We've got roughly 2 million species that have been systematically described and named by taxonomists. I don't give a crap about the estimates. Estimates are like assholes. Everybody's got one and they all stink, right? Oh, Dr. A swore, $200. It's against the law to swear in Virginia, in case you didn't know. But I'm from Massachusetts, so we swear all the time. I'm one of those damn Yankees. I was in the Army for 12 years, and we used to get picked on because we were Northerners down at Fort Benning, Georgia, and one of my drill instructors basically was like, you know what the difference between a Yankee and a damn Yankee is, boy? And I was like, no, I don't. And he's like, well, you're a Yankee, but right now you're a damn Yankee because you're south of the Mason-Dixon line. And I said, you know, drill sergeant, what the best thing about Fort Benning is? He's like, what? And I go, seeing it in my rearview mirror. He didn't like that. But anyway, it's like, you know, when you think about, I was going somewhere with this and that train of thought. Anyway, well, we've got all this diversity and we've got estimates. Oh, there might be 100 million different species out there. We only have about 2 million that have been systematically described. Well, there may be like 50 million species just in the rainforests of Central America. And I take students down for tropical biology for like 2 weeks in May every other year for this course. We spend 2 weeks down in the jungle, you know, running around, playing, doing experiments and doing projects down there. You know, all the stuff that we talked about during a semester, they get to see it when we go down to Panama. But unless it's been described by a systematist and it's been placed in a phylogeny based on those evolutionary relationships, it's not real. You know, in the end, the only thing, when you look at the classification of a species, you know, because we have to organize all of the species that are out there, you know, from domain down through domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, and then you've got gradations in between. The only thing that's real in any given classification is what? It's like, can you grab and pick up a kingdom? You can grab and pick up a representative of something in the kingdom Animalia. Maybe you can pick up a species, put it over here, or hold it in your hand. You're like, oh, that's cute, and eat it. That was like my dog, one of my dogs with like a baby rabbit. You know, just like came over, looked at it, nosed it over, swallowed it whole. I actually have the specimen because I collected it out of his poop. I do weird things. What can I say? You'll look at it in the lab. But the only thing that's real when we think about biodiversity or biological diversity is the species. It's like that's the only taxonomic level that's actually real. You know, you can't say like that's a genus. No, all of those species are classified within that genus. They represent individual species of that genus. You can't say, oh, this is a family. I mean, we say that with us because you're looking at, oh, here's my family. Well, you're all the same species, but you're classified within a taxonomic family. So again, we're going to talk more about this later. We'll stop now. I will see you guys in lab on Tuesday. I'll see you in lecture beforehand. Between now and Tuesday, pick up one of those like $1 composition books. You know, it can have lines, or if you can get it with like the grids, that's a little bit better for the lab notebook. That's what you'll use for the lab notebook. Keep your lab notebook separate from your lecture notes. The stuff that I talk about in the pre-lab lecture on a taxonomic group, put that in your lecture notes, not your lab notes, because that way you can kind of keep things separate, even though they are connected. All right, I'll see you guys. Thanks for coming. If you have questions, either stop by and see me upstairs, MS 330, or email me, text me. Everybody's here, so it works out. No worries. Thanks. You know, and just always remind me to